Good afternoon. Welcome to All About Animals. I'm Sherry Gradator, and my guest today, a wonderful guest who's been here many times before because he knows so much that we can never quite get it all out, is Garen Fife. Garen, who founded ABC, Humane Wildlife Rescue and Relocation. I did it? The whole thing?
That's very good.
Yeah, I work at it, Garen. I really do. And had the first concept that when an animal got into a person's property, it didn't have to be killed. It could be trapped and relocated, which was an altogether, it was just a wild concept back there. Nobody was doing it but Garen.
Yeah.
And now there are many companies that do it, but as far as I'm concerned, nobody does it better.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we couldn't even get an ad in the phone book for 5 years.
Really?
No one had ever heard of it. There was no category for it.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, Garen knows more about what's going on the other side of the fence and into the woods than any human being I've ever met. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because spring is melting into summer even as we speak. And there are all kinds of things going on in the woods right now. And Garen, we start with the birds, because I'm getting phone calls from people who are seeing little baby birds hopping on the ground, and God, we've got to catch them and save them and rescue them. And I'd like to get a message out about birds and the difference between fledged and unfledged. Go for it.
Well, these birds that are falling out of the nest, they're testing their wings, and they're strengthening their wings by flapping their wings. And when they do that, sometimes they'll catch a little breeze and it'll take them a little off the side of the nest, and when they come back down, there's no nest there, and down to the ground they go. And so here they are on the ground, and the parents come back to feed their young, and they have a nice green worm in their mouth, and the baby's gone. And they hear a peeping, and they look down, and there's the baby on the ground. So they have no hands. They can't pick it up and put it back in the nest. And you shouldn't try to do that either, because you can break your neck trying to climb up there. And nature has learned over the years that when a baby falls out of the nest, it's almost ready to fly. So it's not very far from being independent. So what they do is the mother and dad will usually feed the baby on the ground. Baby will hop up into the low bushes, hide itself, and be fed on the ground, continue flapping its wings, learn to fly, and then fly away. So that's a fledgling stage. So don't worry about it. If you see birds on the ground, leave them alone. Don't touch them. The myth about touching the bird and the parents abandoning it is totally a myth. Birds don't smell things like that anyway. But they tell kids that because they want them to leave them alone. Because if they remove them, then the birds can't find their baby and feed it. So kids, don't touch them. Adults, don't touch them. Watch. Let nature take its course. Watch and learn. And nature will do wonderful things. And children, often, they have to interfere with things. If they see something, they have to grab it, catch it, put it in a box or a bottle or a something or other, and take it somewhere else and play with it and starve it for a while and hopefully turn it loose again. But the best thing to do is see without being seen. Watch nature, watch it unfold and take its course. Be patient. Just be patient and watch. Something will happen. And something interesting will always happen. So watch nature. Don't interfere with it. You don't have to grab it. You don't have to save it. You don't have to interact with it other than observe and learn.
And we know that mama and papa birds have been taking care of babies on the ground since there were baby birds.
And
because
before.
this happens.
Right.
And if you just leave them alone. Now, if you've got a bird that's obviously injured, it's fallen, it has a broken wing, it has a broken leg, it's bleeding, there are people who do rehabilitation, and you can certainly contact one of them. And your local animal shelter should have a list of rehab places. Most of the animal shelters have lists of rehab places, and they can help you find a licensed rehabilitator who knows how to take care of an injured animal. There are veterinary clinics that will take in injured animals, but they're few and far between, but there are a few. There are rehab centers, usually not right in your community because they need some space, but they're there. Now, having talked about baby birds hopping on the ground, let's go to the next step, because the next step is baby deer. And baby deer laying in the woods all alone. and no sign of mama anywhere.
And baby bunnies as well.
Okay, and so well-meaning, caring people say, oh my God, that poor baby's been abandoned. And they take it and they put it in their garage, or they take it and they put it in their house. And what is the case with bunnies, with fawns? You're on, Garen.
Okay, when they're born, they have very little smell, very little aroma.
Body odor.
Body odor. And the mother, the parents have strong body odor. And the babies are hidden under leaves and hair and things and grass if they're rabbits. And they're dappled, they have a dappled coat with spots that look like shadows and points of light filtering through the leaves. And it looks like a spotted little thing there. And it's camouflaged very beautifully. And their instinct tells them to freeze, don't even move. So they'll tuck down and they'll just look around with with their eyes, not moving anything but their eyes a little bit. And usually not even their eyes. They'll just stare straight ahead, not even move their eyes. So a predator will come by, and unless the predator steps on the baby, it pretty likely will just walk right on by, because there's no odor there, no movement. And predators are triggered to aroma, to smell, and to movement. And so the baby deer doesn't move, and there's no smell. So the mother deer goes off, feeds, stays within the area where it knows where its baby is. And then when it's time, when it's full of milk, it's time to feed the baby. It goes back, it feeds the baby, and after it's done feeding it, it takes care of its cleaning up and its hygiene, and then goes off again and leaves it. So if you see a nest full of eggs and the mother's on the nest, or you see baby rabbits in a hole, or you see a baby deer, leave them alone. Watch and learn. Don't bother it. Call somebody who knows something. Call a nature center. Call a museum. Call the Department of Conservation. Ask a biologist. Ask a naturalist. What's happening here? What should I know about this? Should I interact with it? Do you want me to bring it? But don't just do something. Call somebody who knows something and ask them.
Yeah, and the rule of thumb that we used to go by with deer was if the fawn is crying, and you watch it for a day and it's still crying at the end of the day.
It's covered with ants and it's starving, and
then you can tell that it's hungry, and that's the point, that you don't pick it up and take it in. You call a rehabber. You call someone who knows the right formula to feed this baby, because you're going to kill it if you try to give it milk.
Right. You try to feed it water, it makes it drowned.
Yeah.
You try to give it food, it can't digest it.
It needs to be someone who knows. And, very brief, very short story was that last year I found a baby hummingbird that had gotten hung up on a screen by its nails and could not get loose. And I don't know how long it had been hanging there, but it wasn't moving a whole lot when I got there. The poor little thing was just exhausted and pathetic and whatever. And I took it to a rehabber because it was obvious at that point that this thing wasn't going to make it. She imported a special hummingbird food.
That must be Linda Brewer.
You got it.
I love that woman.
She imported a hummingbird food. She said she got it in Germany. And it was the only hummingbird food that was correct to supply all of the needs of a baby hummingbird. And she had a little needleless syringe. The thing was not bigger than the first joint of my thumb. And she would hold this teeny little thing, and she got the syringe real close, and it started to eat. And that little hummingbird survived and was released into the wild, which was heaven for me. It was just wonderful. Mm-hmm. But I sure couldn't have done it. I couldn't have gotten the right food. I wouldn't have known how to hold it. I wouldn't have known how to feed it. And I've been dealing with all kinds of animals for lots of years. So most people are in the same position that I'm in. We don't know enough. And when you don't know enough, you can do as much harm by being wonderful and loving as you can by being uncaring. So watch, learn. If it looks like it's in trouble, call someone who knows what they're doing and get help. But don't try yourself, because, okay, here's a poser for you, though. Here's a problem that I ran into last year. with someone who called me up and said there was a nest of baby bunnies in the middle of his yard, and his dog was going after the baby bunnies, and he couldn't keep the dog out of the yard, and the gardeners were going to mow over the baby bunnies. What do you do? I didn't know what to tell him.
Well, you can move the baby bunnies, but you have to move them in a way the mother can find them and continue feeding them. So what you do, move the bunnies like 2 or 3 feet. The next day, move them 2 or 3 feet. The next day, move them 2 or 3 feet. Make sure the mother can find them each time. And then finally put them outside of the yard. A chipmunk climbing up a tree. It's about 30 feet up. The dog just chased it up.
Oh, they go up and down these trees all the time, little chippers. Yes.
Anyway, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. But that's the case, because I really didn't know what to tell these people. And what's going on in the woods right now, Garen?
All kinds of things. The morel mushrooms are pretty much done. So the mushroom hunters are out of the woods. But the botanizers are in the woods, and the hikers and the bikers and all that sort of thing. But my favorite thing to do in the springtime is to botanize, is to go out and check out the spring wildflowers. We have a profusion of spring wildflowers here, all kinds of plants coming up. And when plants are in flower, you can see all the features of the plant, easy to identify, and lovely, lovely plants. And a lot of them are medicinal, a lot of them were used by the Indians, by the pioneers, by the old Druids even, for medicinal plants. And a lot of plants we have here in this zone are also found in Europe and in Asia at this same level of, Korea, China, US, or Europe, around the world. So it's a very interesting biological zone.
You found stinging nettles
Right, stinging
on my
nettle.
property, and I know nothing about them except that they're no-nos because they sting.
Well, they sting, but they sting in a different way. It's not like a bee or a hornet or a scorpion or something. It's a plant that has little glass-like hairs that are filled with an irritating liquid. And if you brush against it, the sharp little hairs embed in your skin and break off. And then that liquid irritates your skin and causes red welts and itching and burning. And with that plant, growing in the same zone is a plant called jewelweed or wild touch-me-not, related to the impatiens that you grow in your garden. And it has little capsules of seeds that when you touch them, they curl up really quickly and the seeds go flying around. And if you rub that plant against the stinging nettles, it neutralizes it instantly. It's
amazing.
It's totally amazing.
And we know that the baby birds have mostly been born now, and many of them have left the nest already.
Yeah.
Raccoons, I think the babies
Baby
are out.
raccoons are out, absolutely.
Yeah. That means foxes are out.
Baby foxes are out. I just saw a mother fox catching a young groundhog yesterday.
And we know that the mother possums most likely are carrying babies in their pouches.
Yeah.
Mother possums being our only North American marsupial. And they carried their babies in a pouch for how long?
Well, for a long time. But when they're first impregnated, they are given birth within 13 days. They get pregnant, they give birth in 13 days. Are little tiny things that are like the size of a fly.
Little pink wigglers.
Little pink wigglers, like the size of a fly. And they crawl up the mother and go inside the split into her pouch and attach themselves onto one of her little nipples inside. And often there are a bunch of them that are born that don't find the nipple and they just die.
One small thing is if you see a possum that's been hit by a car and you take a look, if she's got babies in her pouch, if that pouch is moving, call a rehabber because they'll take those babies and raise them.
Yeah, a lot of times they're big enough. They've already released their grip on the thing, and they're ready to go. I saw a possum this big in a robin's nest that had eaten the baby robins and was sitting in the nest, all curled up. So they're pretty tough even when they're little.
So we've got babies in the woods. I know the fawns have been born. We got babies in the woods. We've got baby birds all over the place. Summer is the most wonderful time, but we are out of time.
Too bad.
Which is unfortunate because there's so much to talk about.
A lot more.
So, thank you, Garen. and we're going to take you to Save a Pet and show you some of the wonderful animals that are waiting there for adoption.